Hello and welcome to Across the Pond WNBA. A little later than usual, but we are here. And wow, each week I try and look at like games and stuff that we can talk about and all that kind of stuff. But this season, I just don't feel like we're able at any point to do that.
It's different. I think there's so many stories around this season, and there's so much going on, that's outside of basketball, but that directly affects it.
Yeah, it's been weird. Uh, we have had some bad news in the injury front for
Yeah.
some players. We've had some good news on the injury front from other players. It's kind of swings and roundabouts when that comes to happen, and I think that's just normal. But yeah, there's been some stories. We are going to talk about some social media um, takes because I think we just have to get them out in the open. And there seems to be a lot of myths going around online in these groups. I'm in a couple of groups. The one I'm going to concentrate on the most is the Indiana Fever group. Now I think I've followed that for a while, but it's always been like they now have 115,000 people in that group. That group was never that big before.
Yeah.
Um, but I, yeah, there's some stuff in there that even the moderators are struggling to kind of keep up with some of the BS that goes on in there. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And the first thing that we want to talk about is the Aces, and the point guard is back.
And can't you tell the difference? The way they play, the way that team functions, it's a whole nother team when she's on the court. It also it makes me look and go, "I thought it could be Minnesota, Connecticut." I don't know.
Yeah. Take a look at Across the Pond Aces on Instagram, people. Uh, Jasmine has been at the home games, and she posted some videos last week after the games when Chelsea made her return, and it was immense. It was intense. Also, Jackie Young's kind of coming back as well because she's been ill. So there's been Jackie kind of in and out. There's obviously Chelsea's been out for a while, but I'm kind of glad that she's back now. I'm glad you mentioned it last week. Glad that they kind of left it later and didn't try and rush her back because you don't want to see someone come back and then just immediately again go back out injured. So I was kind of glad that they left her out, and she looks ready to go. I mean, to be fair, she looked ready to go from the beginning of the season, but she is on fire.
Oh, man. It's like she never left. It's almost like she got a breather and needed it
Yeah,
and has come back with so much energy. You can tell, she runs that team on the floor and that they have a lot of confidence and trust in her and her abilities, as they should. She's proven herself time and time again. But I think it's also a treat for the fans to see her back on the floor, and hopefully we can reel in because some of their, comments online have been kind
yeah,
of I've kind of been like, I expected better of those fans. Don't get the entitlement buzz just because you got a couple of back-to-back championships. That's when you kind of lose everything. So make sure you continue to stay behind the team and bring them back. And I think her coming back will help with that as well. And then we can talk about the comments later on
yeah.
in the show.
So she comes back against Seattle. It's 94-83 win
Mhm.
for us, and you're right. Like I watched that game, and I was like, and I mean, we're gonna do Across the Pond Aces tomorrow, so I can't wait to talk to Jasmine about it. But like, I watched that game, and she just looked like she hadn't missed a beat. It is like she's just had like a mini vacation, and then come back in and just boom straight in. And I mean, I know and the good thing as well, and this is something that you do see sometimes in sports, but not always, is players that are injured are there with their team regardless. And Chelsea has been there. I think Jasmine had got some video of like a timeout where Becky's not saying a word. And it's Chelsea that's in the huddle, like pointing, and you need to do this and you need to do that kind of thing. So I think you're right. I think that kind of floor general having Chelsea back on the floor is gonna make a massive impact, and I think we've seen that kind of straight away.
Absolutely. I think it's gonna continue to get better and better. I think it's gonna be great for Kate Martin to have her out there on the
Oh,
floor.
yeah.
I think it's gonna just open things up even more for her because I really think that is probably the best pickup in the draft. Outside of our number 1 and number 2 picks, but, like, I think she's been a surprise pick, and she's gonna get a lot of media coverage, if she just listens to the point guard.
I think that comes down to scouting. Like, when you're scouting players and you're looking at college prospects that are
Yeah,
coming out, we've seen it. You see it across American sports, not so much European sports because we don't do drafts, but
yeah,
you do see it across American sports. Sometimes there is that player. Like, if it's the NFL, it's Brock Purdy, who is like Mr. Irrelevant. Um, if it was like the Utah Jazz, they took Rudy Gobert at what, 29 or something. So there is or it's maybe 23. But so there is this thing where if you've got a good scouting team and you've not got the number one, number two pick, and you are looking a bit further down the line, then and I think it's funny that she comes from a team where, you know, you had Caitlin Clark on that team.
yeah.
And no one ever talked about Kate Martin. No one talked about her. And when she got drafted, it was like, oh, she was there with Caitlin for Caitlin to be drafted. So how unusual would it be that like the person that was gonna go number one, the person that they brought along with them would end up getting drafted as well. Very unusual.
That's a fairy tale story. I think it's beautiful. It's one that, fans as well as Kate herself will never forget that moment and what it felt like, and I think she also gets the fan base of maybe some people who knew who she was in college, those Iowa fans, but who didn't really show that same type of love, can actually see who she is and how she contributed to that team making it to 2 national titles as well, and how she was pivotal to Caitlin's success because she doesn't need all the attention, she doesn't care about all of that, she just knows how to show up, be the hardest working player, and hit shots when she's open, and that's what the aces need for her.
Yeah, I mean, team that historically does not take rookies on after like the start of the season or even before
Yeah,
the start of the season. So to see her like contribute so much and so well. And one thing that has been good, I mean, she's playing 20, 25 minutes a
yeah,
game. I do hope that now that Chelsea's back, she still gets those kind of sizable minutes because I think that development needs to continue because I
mhm,
think she deserves it. So hopefully as well, she'll still continue to get big minutes. Maybe not quite 25, but
yeah,
even if we're still kind of in the late teens, early 20s, that'd be
yeah.
pretty cool.
She's gonna be instrumental if they make a run, and I think
Yeah.
they will make a run, and I think that's when she's really gonna blow up.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so good news is Chelsea Gray is back, and bonus news: suddenly the Aces can start winning again. So there you go. Means it's not on Asia's shoulders as well. I think that's such a big part of that story.
It is,
And
but I
that's
have to
tough.
say, y'all, Asia's been playing like a damn monster. I don't know who voted against her in that MVP race last year, but she is coming for your neck. She is pissed, and rightfully so. And I hate to say this, but her game, which was already the best in the league, has went to another level. It is
Yeah,
absolutely scary how she's playing right now.
yeah, she is absolutely outstanding. And funnily enough, now she is going to the Olympics.
Mhm.
But she has still been voted so far number one in All Star voting, which is hilarious because she can't play for the All Stars. I
I
don't know if
love it
voters know
though.
this.
Hey, give that girl her props, okay?
Yeah, definitely. She deserves it. Now, obviously, there was some sad news, and for a
Yeah.
rookie as well, big
Yes.
rookie. Cameron Brink, unfortunately, has torn her ACL, which I think was
Mm.
she 12 games into her season, 15 games, sorry, into her season and into her WNBA career. That has got to be absolutely devastating.
It is devastating. It is very devastating, but I know that she does have a strong group of people around her, from her mother to the people in her lives. She has a support system, and I'm thankful for that. She's gonna be able to take a breather, get healthy. She's had a taste of the league, so she's another one that I expect to come back and to be a complete monster too. You notice a lot of players, I don't know if we've noticed this across sports, when they're having injuries like this, they're coming back and they're taking their game up a level. I think Cameron Brink has the IQ, the EI, the emotional intelligence as well. I think she has great trainers and people around her that are going to help her. I think right now it's just having that empathy that she gets to miss the rest of her rookie season, and praying also that she sees this as an opportunity to rest, because I've said this, these college players get no break, and sometimes when you don't get a break, that added pressure, those games night in it, they're playing every other night. That's the other piece that they're not used to. So I hope it gives her that breather, at the same time, wishing her a speedy recovery. We want her to come back. We can't wait to see her back on the court. And the one thing we know is some people will have that injury as a rookie and they would never see the league again. We know that she made such a stamp on her first season in just 12 games that we're going to see her again.
Oh yeah, we're gonna see her again. Sadly, we won't also see her at the Olympics in
Yep,
Paris. She
true.
was slated to play for Team USA's 3v3 tournament, or the Olympic tournament for the
Mhm.
USA team, which is sad because she'd played in the World Championships and obviously rocked that. Um, and she was going to be paired up again with Daily Van Leith. So, like, there was that kind of whole steadying of the ship for that team,
Yes.
who are now going to have to make a change and unfortunately bring in an alternate.
Who do you bring in that could take her spot?
Well,
I mean,
apparently everyone online thinks it should be Cardosa, but I keep reminding everyone that she's Brazilian.
but I,
Mm.
with that too. Also, they're both post players, but they're completely different post players, and that changes the dynamic of a 3-on-3 team.
Yeah,
Camilla is a traditional post. Camille is that future post.
yeah, it could
They
be.
are not the same.
No, definitely not. So sad news out of LA, to be fair, and it's yeah, it is weird how she kind of went down because the way she went down, I thought, oh, I think she's just twisted her knee or something. I was hoping it was going to be something quite simple,
Simple.
but when I seen her not being able to put weight on it, I was kind of, oh, that maybe is a bit more serious. Anyway, I think that they'd done an MRI, and then the next day they kind of announced that sadly it was her ACL that was unfortunately gone. But it'll be repaired.
Ooh,
She'll heal up, and she will be back without a doubt.
that's a tough injury, man. That's a tough one.
We're seeing ACLs, by the way, ACLs in women's sports, like it's a real deal. We're seeing it in the WSL. We're seeing it
Mhm.
in the NWSL. There is a real problem right now with women in sports and ACL injuries because this is not a one-off. Unfortunately, it does happen to men as well. But I think over the last 2 years, all I have heard from women's soccer and women's basketball is about ACLs.
That has been I'll be honest, that has been the case for years. That's one of the biggest issues. We know women with the hips are built different, and a big contributor to that. There are many contributions that will affect that. The way a woman is built, it comes down to one, you're also going from playing once, maybe twice a week, to playing two, three, four times a week with very little recovery. And this is one of the biggest concerns that I have for rookies, is being able to transition to putting more pressure on the body. And another big component of it is we also have women's sports right now, which is blowing up. And one of the biggest things we hear a lot about is signature shoes, signature shoes. Also, signature shoes in a women's last, or made for a woman, whatever technical terms are around that. Is women, men's feet are a little wider, so they're sliding in those shoes, which is creating some of the issues with the ACLs for women whose feet are built very differently than men. And I think we're at that culmination point where a lot of things that have been kind of underneath the table or underneath that iceberg are gonna bubble up for women's sports, and they're gonna change for for the soccer leagues, all of them, because it does need to change, and we do need to do better by these female athletes because ACL injuries have historically been higher across women's sports.
Yeah, it's not. It's almost like it's become, although it's been around for a while, it's almost as if it's becoming a bit of a pandemic,
Yes,
within women's sports, and
social media.
hopefully, someone can come up with the right answers, and maybe some big sports companies out there can kinda grab the bull by the horns and do something about it.
Go look at the research, because I go, "It's been there." This it's almost like the Caitlin Clark effect. All these
Yeah,
things that have been there are magically now, "Oh, we didn't know." It's been there, and for the research, all this stuff has been there. I think it's at a point now where you're gonna have to do something about it. You're no longer gonna be able to just kinda brush it under the rug as before. So it's gonna help women's sports across the board.
I think Caroline had, an ACL doctor on,
Mm.
the WSL podcast, Women's Soccer League in England, and he was talking more about recovery and what that takes, but obviously the kind of footwear thereafter that they need to wear to make sure that they don't have a reoccurrence. Because apparently, like if it goes once,
The
there's more
likelihood of
potential for it to go for a
Yep.
second time
That, or you put more pressure on the other knee and you end up tearing the
doing the
other
other one. Yeah.
one. Mhm.
So
And it's it's crazy, but athletes know the numbers, and
yeah,
they because they have to deal with this, and you have a teammate almost every other year, if not most years, that's out with a similar injury.
yeah, not good, but hopefully Cameron will be back next season,
She's
better,
in a good spot.
stronger.
Got some great doctors out there.
Yeah, well, she went to Stanford, right? That's known for
Stanford and
yeah.
LA, I go, she's in a great spot,
She's
unlike
in a good she's in a good spot. Now, something that we wanted to talk about was a lot of things going around. I think it was first. It was it came out in the Washington Post, uh, a newspaper that I would have thought would have been a bit more sensible, but never mind. Um,
privately
like,
owned.
well, privately owned. The WNBA is expected to lose $50 million despite its popularity, according to the Washington Post. The Washington Post also says that the WNBA loses $10 million every year. I do wonder if they actually went to the WNBA and asked them for their financial figures, because from what I've seen, like this $50 million is kind of like I'm just going to pick a number out of the air.
I don't think it was picked out of the air. I think it's strategic. It's all about
Well,
strategies and narratives. Remember that 50 million I told you would come up later in the season?
you did.
I told you it was going to come up, and here it is. And if you do not know your research and your history, and if you aren't following along, you're like, "Oh my god, that's why they aren't paying these players," and da 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 da. I said all of this was gonna come. CBA agreements at the end of the season. They are setting the table to control the narrative, and they have done that. And Caitlin got everyone chartered flights. Well, then is she paying for it? Because if she's not, the league is leveraging that same 50, that Caitlin Clark effect. And this is where Caitlin was like, stop using her name for things. And I go, well, the league is doing it too, to a sense, because you leverage that to say she's done all this for the league, but then you're turning around and leveraging it to say the league is underwater. And the league is not 50 million underwater. The league has more viewership, it has gotten more endorsements, and is getting ready to renew some of those things. So they had the opportunity, like we said, to have a big media deal in this offseason just because of the sheer notoriety of the Caitlin Clark effect, which she does own. But this 50 million was not pulled out of thin air. I guarantee it was a friend of a friend dropping a story to create the narrative for later on after the season. So this is very strategic. They're playing chess. My question is, we know that the players are some pretty good chess players themselves, and they know how to. They do their research. They know what's going on, and they're going to speak about it. I think that will be instrumental in how these stories kind of play out, because I think educating the fans will help, because the fans will just think, "Oh, the league's been in the red forever and a day," and I go, "The league was out of the red at year 10." We had articles that came out about being out. We're the fastest league to come out of the red. Now you're saying we're not out of the red at year 28. Pick one, or pull your books out and let everybody see, because the last CBA showed that we were, and that players were only getting 5% of the pot. So now you're saying, "Oh, no, the number's astronomically higher." Great
It's
timing on that, but, the day of just listening to what people say is over. People have the ability to do research. You can look at the last collective bargaining agreement and tell that this is some bull. Um, and at the end of the day, they won't like me much for telling the truth, but it is the truth, is these players have a voice, and it is time for them to speak up and get their portion of the pie. And they have players who know how to do that, and they know the correct numbers. I think this narrative is being more creative for those new fans and those people, so that they can kind of be like, "Oh, this is why they're only getting paid this much, but we took care of Caitlin."
yeah. Could we see, because we've seen it across sports, we've seen it in the NBA, we've seen it in Major League Baseball, we've seen it where else have we seen it? I don't think we've seen it in the NFL, but we've certainly seen it certainly in the NBA, where players, even back when I was a kid, there was a lockout, what, in '97 or something? And, you had pictures of
Yeah.
you had Sprite, very savvy Sprite, during the lockout, using Tim Duncan and Grant Hill, some of their
Mhm.
players that they sponsored, using them in ads. "Oh, well, look, these guys aren't playing basketball, so look, Grant Hill will come and mow your lawn," or, "Tim Duncan will come and get the cat out of the tree," or whatever.
I thought that
So,
was hilarious.
that was so I don't know why I remember that advert, but it was hilarious. And I do wonder if we get to a point where we get a bit of a stalemate, and do we potentially have a lockout next year?
I think that's terrible for the league. I think that's really bad.
Especially a new TV
But
deal.
yeah, I think, do you wanna lose this many new fans? You can't have a stalemate. You can't have, but I also understand that from a business side, I love that business hat, is putting those articles out. That is the smart move, but I'm a player too, so I get that side of it as well. And it's like, they have earned this. They have earned the right to come to the table and ask for more, as they should. And at the same time, regardless of what you're losing, how much of the remaining 95% is going towards that, and how much is going towards shareholders and investors to get their money back faster, which I get and I understand. I think I think when you look at the chess move that's being played, if you have a lockout right now, it could really hurt women's sports. It would hurt. It would. And that's where I see, okay, let's start planting these stories and narratives out there. That To be honest, if they can prove the 50 million, but it's the chartered flights, because I go, it has
Yeah.
never been that high. We've never heard that number before that's being pulled out. And I'll be honest, I have never heard of a team or franchise saying they weren't in the red.
That's
But
it.
you keep getting more deals and more sponsorships, and
Yeah.
you're still, but the number that you're underwater, it's always 10. And I've always known this. If you want to know when someone is BSing you about business numbers, they're going to give you a round number, because no one is in debt exactly $10 million. So
$1,000,000, yeah.
that's not true.
Yeah. And that was the thing, like, when you read this, you research and stuff, and you read certain media outlets, um, it's always, I mean, the WNBA is just a waste of time, it's just a money drop. I mean, the poor NBA having to fund the WNBA for all of 26 years, and, having to
No,
to pay this $10 million in losses every year and everything else, and, like, even I'm smart enough to know that, like, friggin' 10 years ago, when I started watching WNBA on and off, even I knew, like, that wasn't a thing, but it's just always being there, and it is. I mean, some of it will be the narrative that someone's dropping stories here, there, and everywhere. But at the same time, like, I think some of these media outlets need to grow a pair and actually do some actual research. Because I think some of the stories I've read,
Hmm,
they're all they've done is copy and paste what someone else has said and
thank
put
you,
it on their website.
thank
And
you.
you're just kinda like, I'm not gonna
They're
name any
sound bites.
names,
They're just
but it's
taking
just
beautiful
yeah,
sound bites.
yeah, they're just taking sound bites, and they're just saying, "Oh, well, the Washington Post said this, or the Washington Post said that." And, like, no, it's lazy journalism. Like, if you're gonna be a journalist, actually do what it says in your little contract when you sign on to be an on an outlet, and actually do the research to find out, is this actually true? Because is there not a thing, and I think it's a thing in news media, maybe not sports news media, where you have to have 2 sources, confirmed
Mhm.
sources, before you can kind of release a story that's breaking news or whatever else.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't seem to be that same kind of thing in sports media. It's just like, "Ah, we'll just say this," and then it's out there and who cares?
Well, they're gonna say that the Washington Post is a source. It's a reputable source. So they're gonna pull that, put that soundbite in. Let me grab another soundbite, put that in, and then create the story how I wanna create it. And some people, they do mean well. I'm not saying that this I think I'm glad this story's out there about the league being 50 million under. Okay, let's do the research and see if that's actually true. And if so, I have a couple of questions. It costs around 10 million to run each WNBA franchise. A lot of these teams are individually owned. So I'm confused. If they're paying the operating costs and everything that goes on with running this team, how's the league? I'm not, because there are other fees. Don't get me wrong. I know
Yeah.
there are other operating expenses. I guess my question would be, what is included in those operating expenses that adds up to exactly 10 million every single year?
Every year.
Because that doesn't make sense. Or say estimated. That's where the journalism isn't accurate either. Because usually when they come with these extortion cases, they give you this person had $187,653.52. But with the WN, but it's always that same round number. So it just sounds like
And
you're just hearing something or grabbing something from the internet and just refurbishing it to make an article and then creating a story that, I'm not saying it isn't true. I'm saying, where are the factual resources that people can actually leverage and see and go, oh, okay, now this makes more sense. And I'm not saying the WNBA needs to reveal any of that. I'm just saying that maybe the people telling the stories are not as accurate as they should be. And it's creating conversations with these new fans where their point of view on the league will be altered. And why do you think we have fans online saying, well, Caitlin got paid, forget everybody else. The rest of y'all are irrelevant. Who the heck is Asia Wilson? She's not the best in the league. Caitlin is. And you hear these sound bites that are ridiculous, but part of it is misinformation.
yeah, it is, and hopefully, I mean, I'd hope that that'll always happen, because I mean, this is politics, really. This isn't really what happens on the floor. When it comes to finances and everything else, everyone's in it for themselves. Let's be honest. When it comes to the money, shareholders, owners,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the only people that aren't in it for the money is probably season ticket holders, because they want they just want to pay to see good basketball on the floor. Um, let's you mentioned social media there, so let's move along to social media, which has become my new favorite hobby. I have to say, I have been
Y'all
stirring
made
it
him
up.
shave.
I have been stirring it up on some social media feeds, because I just can't take people talking. Actually, there was one night last week I seen a comment, and it made my blood boil so bad. I was like, I can't even answer it. I can't answer to this level of stupidity.
We want to
Um,
know. We want to know.
so, well, if I can find it again as we go through, then I'll mention that one. But um, in fact, do I remember that one? It was something about number 22, and I happened to mention that actually,
Mm.
number 22 has 2 MVPs, has 2 WNBA championships. That's a
That part.
champion in the pros, not in the college, who actually wasn't a champion in college either. So, I did mention sorry, Caitlin, I like, and this is the thing, I'm gonna preface this, as I preface this every week, and we seem to get shot down for it every week anyway. We are not against Caitlin Clark. I
Nah,
think Caitlin Clark is a fantastic, phenomenal player
absolutely.
who is gonna have an amazing career. Like, we both agree on this.
Yep,
However, the fans need to settle that. That's all we're saying. And
yep.
I'm not talking about the Indiana Fever fans who are fans and have been for many years. I'm talking about the fans that the Indiana Fever basketball fans fan page on Facebook had to um, put out a statement on their page to tell people that they're having to moderate comments because there's so many non-fans who they feel are kind of bombarding their site, and it's a real shame because you
That's
know,
crazy.
like these people are real fans that run this group. So shout out to the Indiana Fever basketball fans on Facebook because I think they're doing a tough job that they probably didn't expect that they would ever have to do when they first started this group up. So kudos to them. The first comment is one that got 487 comments on it. Now,
Wow.
here's the question. Name me one player in the last 27 years that's had a bigger impact on the WNBA than Caitlin Clark. I'll wait.
I could name 100. Okay,
This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm
okay.
talking about.
Obviously, you just came to the league in year 27, technically 28. But to get the years right, number 1. Number 2, know your history. You don't know it, obviously. You have no earthly idea what the history is. We get online behind these screen names and go ham, and you're spouting misinformation. And it's also disrespectful to the people who built this stage and this platform for Caitlyn to have to even say that. Because there are people who have 4 back to back championships that will smoke her on any given day. And I hate to keep saying that, but people are acting like they have amnesia and they don't remember the greats of this league and the people who have played and paved the way and who actually have won.
Actually won.
Any
Like
other
she
player, the first question would be, did you win? Did you ever win a championship? That's the biggest question in sports across men or women's. Does that mean that you aren't one of the greatest? I do not agree with that because I think there are great players who have never won. But I also go, our standard of the GOAT, greatest of all time, is how many times a person has won, not how many times they've been to the big dance.
is that why Michael Jordan's the GOAT?
Michael Jordan is not the GOAT, but okay.
So I
He
just
pushed off
thought
on one of those championships. He only has 5, and I've always said that, and Imma stick to it.
he did. I'm glad you
He
agree with
pushed
me.
off. I
I'm
was a
gonna
kid and I could see that, so I was confused by all these adults who just because they were fans acted like they were blind. I
I
am a
am
true
gonna
basketball fan. I love MJ. I've interned under him. He is one of the greatest of all time, mentally tough. He is the reason we have Kobe's and LeBron's today. And all of these great players, KD, Giannis, they're because of people like MJ. But when I look at the GOAT had 11 rings, and I don't care what you say,
hmm,
because
I
some of
will play
y'all only go back as far as you lived, and then some of us actually know the entire history.
so I'm gonna go back and just snip at that bit because me and my dad have this argument all the time about Brian Russell and MJ. Because
Ooh,
obviously I'm a jazz fan, so those were I stayed up till 4 a.m. and watched that game. By the way, all the way
oh,
from Scotland. So I was throwing. I think I woke my mum up that night because like I shouted at the TV so loud. But anyway, back to social media corner, as we might
I like
come
that.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might make this like a regular segment. So as I say, that's one.
Mhm.
Um, we've had another couple. Um, Caitlin has to play the entire freaking half, and her teammates are missing bunnies, shooting air balls.
I'm so glad I had teammates that just let me shoot air balls and knew that I was gonna get it back.
But
'Cause
this is the thing.
I had, like, four-time MVPs, four-time championships players on my team, like, 4 out of the 5, I was the one that was the lacking. But they didn't do that when I shot an air ball. They had enough sense to know that if we don't bring this scrawny little joker along, we don't have a chance at going for another championship. You don't tear down like, everyone is tearing down her teammates. And I've said this, when we look at the videos, she distanced herself from her team. Like, I didn't dance. Like, my teammates come out, they do the dance, but I'm gonna be right there bobbing my head, but I'm not dancing. Y'all know I don't do that. And I think she just kinda walks past them like it's beneath her, and I don't think she thinks it's beneath her. I think it's a lot coming at her at one time. That's a lot. She's not used to that. And I think they also have to find a way to bring her in, but she has to find a way to fit in too, and that will help. I'm gonna stick to it. The problem in Indiana is team building, and that takes time. It takes a lot of time, but that's why I say I hope she has those people around her that can kinda help her, come out of her shell a little bit and be around people maybe that she's not used to being around all the time, because that is clearly
Yeah.
evident. It's evident. It's clearly evident that is a very uncomfortable situation for her. You can see it on her face, and someone has to kinda just, bring her along. And I don't know, you gotta have that person in your corner that you can talk to when you're outside of basketball, and then you wanna have that person that's within basketball that you can talk to as well, and she's gonna get there. I do think she's gonna get there. But I think the fans have got y'all are not helping. Do you want Caitlyn to win? Because if you do, you are shooting yourself in the foot by dogging her teammates and placing a wedge between her and her teammates. We don't need a bigger wedge. We need to remove the wedge by bringing them along. Their job is not to be her protectors. If she's talking trash, she got to protect herself. Like, I think there's a lot of that. Is So she's supposed to be able to say whatever she wants, and somebody else is supposed to get kicked out of the game to protect her. She has to earn that right by bringing those teammates along and making them feel comfortable too. And I think they have to do the same. And that's going to come from the top down, because that needs to be an organizational thing. Is you knew this once in a lifetime talent was coming in. I think they're trying to get a feel for her too. They're only a few games into the season, maybe a dozen. It's gonna take time for them to figure out, okay, what is the best approach? Who do we need to bring in? And I honestly think they probably have something planned for the Olympic break, with or whether she's in Paris or not, but
Mhm.
something to help the team itself
Yeah.
create that environment, that winning environment that is conducive to championship teams. And I do think they'll get there.
If I was the
But I
coach,
think the fans are killing it though.
yeah,
They're oof.
sometimes you see it in, I think Italy do it, Italian soccer, I think in Scotland we do it as well. In January, for 2 weeks, there's no games. It might even be 3 weeks. And what clubs in Italy tend to do is you're still employed, so you're not going
Mhm.
anywhere, you're not going on vacation. We're gonna take you off somewhere abroad into a training camp.
Yep.
And if I was in Indiana and I was the coach right now, I need my team to play together. So what I'm gonna do is you're still employed. This isn't vacation time. This is where we're gonna do the work that no one else will see, so that when you come back and you suddenly start winning, everyone's like, "Wow, what's going on here?" I would take that team because I don't think any of them are going to the Olympics. So I would take them and I would take them away somewhere secluded, somewhere that they can have privacy, somewhere, and then this is gonna be the difficult part because obviously social media is such a pain in the butt that it'll be like, "Oh, I'm in Alaska and I've just seen Caitlin Clark walking down the street, drinking coffee." So, like, I know it's difficult, but I would genuinely take them away somewhere that they can be totally, like, cut off from the rest of the world. Obviously not their families and stuff, but somewhere that they can train, they can, heck, if they all wanna go play golf or, like, they wanna bowl or whatever they wanna do, get that team building in there so that, you know, when they come back after the Olympic break, they know each other. Because at the moment, like, they're on the floor, like, they're on the floor right now playing Chicago, and Chicago is a pretty young and new team as well, with a lot of new pieces, 2 rookies on it. They're going through the exact same issues as well. Like, Cardosa, like, a long pass, you're throwing it to her chest, whereas if you throw it out to her arms, it's gonna make a lot more sense. But it's just because players aren't used to having someone like
Mhm.
Cardoso on the floor, and it's the same with Caitlin. Players
But
aren't
Caitlin's
used to.
different. That's
Yeah,
not the same because I go Chicago and Indiana are only different for 2 reasons. Chicago's rookies, they're balling out, don't get me wrong, they're
yeah,
good, but Caitlin is still
yeah, she's still balling.
but no, I'm talking about the media attention, all the
Oh,
sh
media attention.
all of the
Oh,
PR that comes around. Indiana to me has it the hardest.
they do, and I think that's why they need to get away. I think they need to get away from that, shut off their, um, Instagrams and whatever else that they've got, and just go away for a couple of weeks. And I'm not saying that they have to train like 9 hours a day or anything else like that. I think they need to have solid training sessions, make sure they're working at the gym, but then have that kind of time where that kind of social side where they can go do something all together as a group or as smaller groups where they actually get that opportunity to get to know each other. Like, because, like you said, Caitlin Clark went from college, went to the draft, went to training camp, played the season. I mean, that's and like what, a couple of days in between each or something, maybe a week at the most. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, I've seen some famous ones where, the media have called this kind of out and said, "Oh, you're just off on a jolly." But it's not. It's not the purpose. The purpose is so that your team and the players get to know each other more on a
Mhm.
personal level so that you're more willing to fight for each other. Because if you just turn up on a team and you don't really know anything about anyone, you're not really going to, if there's a bad foul or whatever, you're not really going to fight for your team. You're just going to, oh, well, that was a foul. Whereas if you know your teammate and you know them personally, like you're going to fight
Different.
for them and you're going to jump in at every loose ball and everything else. And I got to be honest, I don't see that in Indiana, a little bit more in Chicago, but you look at the Aces when, Kelsey Plum got horse collared, like, everyone was round. In fact, the bench were all were almost up as well. So, like, but that's what I'm talking about. That's a team. That's a championship team, and that's what Indiana have to aspire to, is not to copy what the Aces have done, but they need to do their version of it.
But I also think Angel Reese is more personable,
Yeah. Oh, she definitely is, yeah.
and if I'm being honest, I think Angel Reese is in a different position too, because she's getting PR, which is beautiful,
Mhm.
and she's playing well, but she does not have the scrutiny over her. She does not have I mean, she is getting a lot of flack when it comes to social media though, because of the
Yeah.
comparisons. Even the game was Caitlyn versus, Angel. Um, and so I'm not saying that she isn't getting any. She is, and she's getting an unfair amount. I'm
Yeah.
just saying there's just such a superb difference between the two. I think Angel is that person that if you go through her social media, she's just personable. She's comfortable. And that's where I'm saying I don't see that Caitlyn is 100% comfortable. And I do understand why. She's in a new system, new team. It's around, I think, it's an environment she's not used to. She has the PR around her all the time. She's fighting battles she's never had to fight with misogyny, all these different things. She's defending. When does this girl get a breather? I think the Olympic break, if she's not on that Olympic team, would be good because she can go on vacation somewhere and just relax and no one's around her. And then when they come back to do the training portion of the Olympic break, I agree with you. They do need to find some ways and some things to make sure everyone feels included on that team, you know? And there are ways to do that. I mean, like I said, I've never been the dancing person, but I might be the one that's at the end of the thing, like shimmying with everybody, or I'm going to find a way to fit in regardless of where I'm at. And I think Caitlin's never going to have to go overseas, but I think that's going to be the biggest experience that she misses because of the cultural immersion, having to kind of sit and deal and you have to figure it out with people that are different than yourself. And I think that's where she is. She's struggling with it. And I have a hell of a lot of patience for her on that because she's having to do what parents in their 40s and 50s have to do is make decisions that are key and instrumental over a multitude of people's lives. And I don't think she's in the same spot as everyone else. That's why I keep saying it's kind of like that LeBron-like moment when LeBron went through this same thing and came into the league. She's gonna find a way because I think NBA people are gonna reach out. They're gonna people that are in her corner. I just hope there's someone that she can trust. And I do think she needs that time and break to just be like, no one's looking at me, no one's questioning what I'm saying or doing, no one's making me fight for anybody else. She does need that. Um, and I think as fans, I know she's here to entertain, but I think there should be boundaries on some of the stuff that people are saying and doing in terms of all of these rookies across the board, but especially Caitlin too. And just because she got a big Nike contract doesn't mean you can say or do anything to somebody. We're forgetting those things.
Yeah. It's it's one of these things where, like, I think you have to remember, although the athletes get paid and everything else, like, they're not there for your personal kinda shots to fire at. And I think like we see on social media, like, there's a lot of people that'll say, I'm not really a WNBA fan. I'm a
Mhm.
Caitlin Clark fan." And, that I mean, that's something that's happened in the NBA for a long time now. It's like, I'm not an NBA guy, I'm a Steph guy,
Yeah,
like, or I'm a LeBron guy. So or Giannis now as well. So, like, I think there is that element that goes along with sports, but I think we've never seen it more prevalent now
yeah.
than with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Because I think Angel Reese does have those fans as well, but I think they do seem to be a bit more on the Chicago team side rather than just Angel Reese.
Yes.
Um, one of the other comments, we'll finish off on this one, is that uh, I've turned away from it, but the comment was basically, when are they going to learn that WNBA is just going to be too physical now? And they're referring to
Oh,
Caitlin Clark. And the game is physical. We've
it
seen
is.
we've seen a lot of physical play. We did see the Carter one on Caitlin. But did you notice in the last game, I can't remember which player it was, but there's a player behind Caitlin who was giving her a bit of a nudge as she was running. And who was the player that basically saved Caitlin Clark from taking a tumble? It was Carter. And I was like, what
I
why
told you.
and I was like, why did none of the commentary team pick this up? The ESPN commentary team picked that up. It was like it never happened. It was like Carter wasn't there. Caitlyn saved herself. She's like the second coming or something.
That's the storyline. It's been the storyline from day one. And I also think that's why there's so much dialogue and you have people on separate sides of the fences, is because that's kind of the narrative that came out, which created a lot of this. But that is also the reason for all the new fans and all the new comments, which at the end of the day are good for the league. I just want it to be good for the players too, and that we don't have like this leads to mental issues, and that is my biggest
Mhm.
concern. Is you're attacking people's character and who they are, and the way some of these comments are going. You wouldn't let anyone talk to anyone in your family that way.
There is that. I mean, some of it is pretty egregious. I mean, I've seen some of the comments, and some of the comments I've responded to. I mean, I've not called anyone stupid yet. Been pretty close, but like, I do like to correct people. I think the one where they said, "Oh yeah, I mean, 22 is the best in the league," blah 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 blah, and I said, "Yeah, Asia Wilson's pretty damn good, huh?"
Pretty that
Um,
would have been my response.
and they came back with, Isha's alright, but I mean, Caitlin's so much better."
Outright. I've been like, "Are you
Yeah,
on crack?
yeah, well,
Voluntarily?
yeah,
Sir,
probably.
sir. I know you did
Um,
not say Asia Wilson was alright."
Alright, that's what they said.
Oh,
They said she was
oh,
alright.
okay.
Um, yeah, it's
Let me
just not fun.
argue
Now,
it.
I mean, everyone knows our bias. We are Aces fans,
But I
hence the
mean, across the
Kelsey
league,
Plum.
people will
But
tell you that Asia Wilson is the best player in the WNBA. That's not a bias. That's
no,
proven, like,
fact.
time and time again. Her
2
accolades, her
championships.
resume, like, bruh, college and professionally. Like, whose resume has who is close to her right now? No one.
No, no, no one. One question actually just popped into my head, as it does from time to time. Yeah, I don't know if you heard the clicking. So see how Caitlin didn't win the championship in college.
Mhm,
Does Because it does seem to me that Dawn Staley and her team
mhm.
don't really seem to have been given credit for winning that game. So see in like 5, 10 years time, do people just assume that Caitlin did win and like because everyone seems to have forgotten that actually she didn't win a national championship in college.
Baby, let me tell you this right now. They may want to assume, but it's gonna be some fans that go, "Pop, pop." Let me remind you, Dawn Staley got some fans behind her.
Oh yeah,
I mean, Tennessee native, but Dawn is the GOAT right now. She is smoking right now. What she's doing for women's sports is amazing. She's one of the reasons a lot of these storylines are there that people get to showcase who they are. Is she's contributed so much to women's basketball. If you try to forget her legacy, she has too many allies. I'm talking about entertainment, other coaches that she's playing against that have that much respect for her. Like, I don't see it. I
no,
think you would probably get a very cold,
cold response.
sarcastic response.
Kind of want to hear it. Um, just for fun. Um, this week I thought, why not our player spotlight? Last week was Nafisa Collier,
Yeah.
who's a phenomenal player from Minnesota. But I thought this week, when we've already talked about her, the point god herself, Chelsea Gray
Whew.
from California, only 5'11". So she's still taller than me. Uh, she went to Duke. I
It's
know you're
just
not
a
happy with.
5'11". Uh-uh.
Oh, she's listed as 5'11",
Okay.
108, 108. What 1.8 meters? Yeah, that's what she's
I have
listed at.
stood next to
I'll double
crazy
check my sources, but she was drafted out of Duke into the WNBA in the first round, 11th overall pick by the
Mhm,
Connecticut Sun. She played for the Connecticut Sun for just one season before moving out to LA, where she played for the Sparks before in 2021 moving to Las Vegas to play for the Aces. But she's been around Europe as well, which
yes.
is phenomenal. Like she has quite a European flair, I guess. And I think like you think about the players that came out of Europe to come play in you think of Sato and stuff. Like they have great technical abilities.
Yes.
And I've always thought Chelsea Gray, as much as she is a floor general, she
Oh, yeah.
has those technical abilities that will get her past players. She's a Turkish champion. She's a all EuroLeague first team player. She's won the Commissioner's Cup MVP,
Mhm.
two-time All WNBA second team. She's made the first team before, five-time All Star, three-time WNBA champ, and in 2022 she won the Finals MVP.
Mhm.
She's absolutely phenomenal, and she's going to the Olympics, where she already won an Olympic medal in Tokyo. So she's already been there. She's got that behind her. But she won a World Cup as well in 2022 with Australia. So even when Chelsea is not playing for the Aces or playing in the WNBA, like she keeps herself busy, like between going playing in Europe and because I think even even last year, I think she played in Europe in 2023. I don't think she did this year. I think, yeah, she just played for, I'm gonna kill this name, Kugrova Basketball. That's my terrible pronunciation, of whatever team that is. It's a Turkish team, so, you know, apparently I can't even say Turkey anymore because they changed their name from Turkey to Turkey, and I still kill that, so
I
what you
love
gonna do?
it. I
I
love the
just make
commentating. I love
I
it.
just make stuff up, it's fine. Who cares?
Yo, at the end of the day, you did a great job though, because she's done so many great things, not just for the WNBA, like you said, it's been across Europe, and she's affected the lives of thousands throughout her career from all the different places she played, the fan bases. I think she's a very unique and talented player who studies the game. She almost reminds me of like a LeBron-like mind. You know how LeBron can recall his recall ability. It's amazing. He knows what needs to be done, where people need to be. I think she's very similar in terms of how she sees the floor and how she's like you talked about the timeout where
Yeah,
she's talking and her teammates are just like you can tell they understand and they know she studied that film ferociously. And I think she's so intent on what she's looking for and she understands. She takes the time to understand every single player on her team, where they're best at, what they are the best at, and also knowing their weaknesses to make teams better. Now imagine being able to go overseas and do the same thing through language barriers and other things and still come out a
yeah,
champion. I think she has a very unique ability. Her mind is a beautiful, beautiful mind. And I love to see her getting the recognition for all that she's done for sports and her team and her teammates. She is the point guard. GAWD, for those who didn't know how to spell it.
I think she's been awesome, and obviously for the Aces, that leadership when,
Oh, yeah.
when Asia, Kelsey, they came into the league, you know, they were kinda there, and then I think when we really noticed the difference is when Chelsea joined the team, and you see that kind of next level, already a WNBA champ by that point, and that next level of, "Right, this is what we need to do." And then Becky came in,
Whew.
and it was almost it was weird. Sometimes you have a player and a coach, like, who are just, like, so on the same level
Mhm.
of what you say, like, some people call it basketball IQ,
Yeah.
but, like, they're just so on the same page. Now, obviously, Becky played out in Europe quite a fair bit during her career as well,
Mm.
so she'll have that behind her. And I think it's absolutely outstanding the career that Chelsea has had and will still have because she has quite a few more championships years in front of her. So I think I think we'll see Chelsea for a long time. But I also see her when she's done playing,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't want to talk about too much done playing, but I see her moving into that kind of college role and
Say
being,
college.
I think college, and I think
Mm.
which I think she goes to a strong program that will allow her to build a team very much not in the same image, but in the same kind of vein as like Dawn Staley has done in South Carolina. Like they will give her the keys and tell her to drive it
I see her on the pro level, men or women, right out the gate.
right out of the
'Cause
gate.
now you have teams that are willing to pay. I I could totally see it. I could see it on the men's side or the women's side, and she has it. Like, she doesn't have to sometimes you come out and people start their careers on that collegiate level to
Mhm.
get their wings, to get to understand the game. Chelsea doesn't need that.
Well, JJ Redick's only going to last until about January. So, I mean, if you know, they could always I mean, the Lakers could always try and get her for, like, the last half of the season.
No, 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 we need more rings.
We need more rings, but,
Yes, we need
yeah,
more ring
the
better.
Lakers are
Being
in
greedy.
trouble. We agree. I mean, who says she doesn't get a ring in the NBA?
That's why I said men or women's
Yeah,
because we're in a time where women are on that side. Just saw, Ashley Battle,
yeah.
who works with the Boston Celtics in the back office now win her first championship.
Mhm.
And that was amazing to see, super proud of her, but you see women transcending those barriers now, and I love it. I think that's gonna be special, and I think Chelsea Gray is one of those. sh she reminds me of, like, a Greg Popovich, but one with
Mhm.
that's more personable. Like, I think she's super
Yeah,
personable on top of
yeah.
it.
Yeah, definitely. If anyone wants to see, I've seen them. Ashley Battle put out a bunch of kind of pictures and
Yes.
stuff on Instagram and stuff, which was really cool. So if anyone wants to check them out, please do.
Show
However,
us love, show us some love.
that is us done for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back next week, and I'm thinking next week we may have quite a big announcement about our coverage of the WNBA and where it's going and what's going to be happening for the rest of this season. So do join us next week for that announcement, and we will catch you all very soon.